Hello, everybody, and welcome to the very first inaugural episode of the Tapped In podcast, a podcast all about MTG news, finance, and current events in metagame. My name is Morgan Booksh.
And my name is Thomas Lowry.
And today, for the first episode, we have prepared a few topics to talk about, what's currently going on in the Magic community. And the first one is Ultimate Masters. Ultimate Masters is a set that was recently spoiled. I understand that Wizards sort of announced it in kind of an interesting way. In fact, I think on your channel, you had something to show, right?
That's right, actually. I got one of those mysterious packages with the box toppers in them.
Mystery.
It was unfortunate that I opened a Temporal Mastery, but having done the research for this video, it's actually a slightly more valuable card than I would have thought.
Yeah, it surprised me, and that sort of got us thinking, what really is the value of this set? Because there's been a lot of talk and a lot of controversy about it being very expensive, yet it being so full of needed reprints, so we just kind of wanted to get our hands dirty, get into the actual numbers, try to do it like a financial analysis of what you have the chances of getting with these box toppers and sort of see where the data leads us, right?
Yep.
And then also I think that there was a Pro Tour this weekend. It was a really exciting Pro Tour. It was a standard Pro Tour. And boy, I haven't been able to say that for like the last 2 years. An exciting standard Pro Tour.
I agree with you there.
Yeah, it's a breath of fresh air, man. I really enjoyed it, and I think there are some cool moments that we can highlight and talk about, and just sort of talk about where maybe the standard metagame is and where it's going.
Well, I guess let's go ahead and start with the UMA. So the way we're breaking this down is by groups. We have colors, multicolored, lands. And there are more lands than anything else. We're going in descending order.
That's right. And for anyone who doesn't know or needs a little bit more information about Ultimate Masters, basically, Wizards does Masters sets pretty frequently. They used to do them pretty infrequently. Modern Masters 1, and then Modern Masters 2015, and then Modern Masters 2017. And they were sort of supposed to be a way for Wizards to make these necessary modern staple cards easier to access for people.
Right. The barrier to entry to the format of Modern is pretty steep in terms of price. So I think overall the Modern Masters sets has been to try and bring down the price of the most expensive cards like Liliana of the Veil or Karn Liberated.
Exactly.
That kind of thing.
And back when these first sets released, like the MSRP of a booster pack of these things was somewhere around like $7 or $8. It was about double what a normal standard booster will cost. But it wasn't anything outrageous. But recently, and I think that this is part of the reason that there is so much controversy about the release of this set. And I mean, there always is controversy in the Magic community.
Right.
We're a very controversial player base, I guess.
But the price of this Masters product, this one in particular, is where most of the controversy is surrounded.
Exactly, and it was sort of a lead up too, right? Because last year, I think they branched out from Modern Masters, I think a couple years ago with Eternal Masters, and just sort of featured some legacy and vintage staples in that set. And then after that, I think we saw, what was it? Iconic Masters.
That's right.
Very, very expensive, very overprinted, not a whole lot of value, but there are some key reprints in it, like Ether Vial and Horizon Canopy,
Right. It was slightly less iconic than people were hoping.
Yeah, and that all made a lot more sense when Masters 25 was released, in the same year, I think. And Masters 25 was a home to a lot of these truly iconic cards like Lightning Bolt and Dark Ritual, Ancient Stirrings, Jace the Mind Sculptor, Azusa Lost But Seeking. But I think what people found is because the iconic Masters packs were around $8 and the Masters 25 packs were around $10. I mean, the price is slowly creeping up. And you sort of see value kind of split into two different sets, so that I think a lot of players felt that they weren't really getting a fair deal when they bought a whole box of either of these things unless they hit a specific Chase Mythic or a specific Chase Foil.
Right.
So not only is it more expensive, it has fewer boosters than perhaps a standard player is used to, or someone who's buying normal booster boxes. Normal booster boxes have 36 packs. Master sets boxes have traditionally had 24 packs, and that's what sort of makes them a hot commodity. But that's also something that really makes you really want to get your value out of a product like this. $335 for 24 packs and a box topper. Let's get down to it. Is it really worth it?
24 packs, you're definitely going to want to be opening the highest dollar cards you can. It's you only have 24 chances. So I appreciate that Wizards of the Coast put so many great cards in this set. Not just a handful like in previous Master sets, but truly a lot. That's just what's been spoiled so far.
And so what we want to do today is sort of dive into each of the sections, colored cards, multicolored cards, lands, colorless cards, and sort of just see what the actual value is and see what we have to gain from a box like this. Without further ado, let's talk about some lands. Lands make up 10 of the 42 box toppers. They are in order: Ancient Tomb, Cavern of Souls, Dark Depths, Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, Stirring Wildwood, Raging Ravine, Lava Claw Reaches, Creeping Tar Pit, Celestial Colonnade, and Caracas.
Well, it's about time they reprinted the Manland set from Worldwake.
No kidding. I mean, the Worldwake was the only spot for them, right? I don't think that they had any other actual set printings.
Nope.
And, cards like Creeping Tar Pit and Raging Ravine and Celestial Colonnade, these are cards that see play.
Lava Claw Reaches, however, maybe not so much.
No. Oh, poor Lava Claw Reaches. One of the worst pieces of value in the set, unfortunately. I wouldn't say that Stirring Wildwood sees a lot of play either. I mean, I guess sometimes in Abzan you'll have a Stirring Wildwood, but Abzan, they kind of like the black-white one a little bit more, I feel like, with the lifelink. So like Wildwood, I don't really think. So I guess if we say Wildwood and Reaches really aren't cards that you ever see played outside of Commander, perhaps.
Right.
Then we have 8 of 10 of these lands playable cards.
8 out of 10, not bad.
That's actually not bad. Now I'm also interested in which of these cards have new art. That's something we thought was important for the valuation of these cards and sort of the value you can expect to get. So how many of these 10 are coming at us with new artwork, Tom?
Well, my little eye can spy approximately 3, I think. It looks like Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth has new art.
Looking pretty sweet.
As well as Dark Depths. I really am enjoying that art.
There's a guy walking on top of the Dark Depths, and his day's about to be ruined. I mean, don't look down, bro. Don't look down.
I'm kind of pleased, I have to say, that they kept all the same art for the land cycle, because I'm just really fond of all of those arts. But the last new one would be Ancient Tomb. Got some new art going on there.
Very, very classic, very dignified Ancient Tomb instead of some ghouls messing around.
It's an actual tomb that looks ancient as hell.
Looks pretty old to me. I love that they kept the cavern art. I just think that this art is absolutely gorgeous, and I cannot wait to see one in the box topper foil.
Oh gosh, yes.
So I guess we should also take this time to mention like the quality of the box topper foils, because we actually at Pat's Games, the card shop where I work, we happened to get in a Tarmogoyf foil box topper from one of those people who received it as an apology for their Mythic Edition. That's what it's called, flub in the Hasbro toy store.
Right.
He traded it in for some pretty good value. He traded it into like a Lily, a Noble, a Karn, and a Jace to complete his cube. So
wow,
well done, Steven.
Shout out to you, Steven. You know who you are.
But yeah, there's a video of it that we can show, and they look absolutely gorgeous. I will say the card was not curled. I was concerned thinking that these foilings might have been like close to the From the Vault foilings, the like sort of thick lacquer foilings that really just don't look good at all.
Right, or even in the same vein as the Modern Masters 2015 foils, which kind of no one was very fond of.
Exactly.
They curl backwards, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And I had this weird kind of...
It doesn't make sense, but I've seen it.
Like instead of laying the card face up and the curls come up on the side, the curls want to go down into the table. Mm-hmm. So I know people weren't fond of that foiling set.
And I feel like it is kind of a trade-off. I don't know anything. I mean, this is wild speculation about the production process for these foils, but I imagine that there's some sort of trade-off that Wizards is making, like, because the FTV foils, I found that it takes quite a bit to make those curl. Like, those are those are some sturdy foils, but like at the same time, they don't look great. They don't like have the like classic feel of like a foil Magic card, and so I think that like these new foils, they are classic foils, and they look so good.
So Morgan, if you want to tell us about the next group.
Yes, sir. The next group with the most number of cards is black. There are 8 cards in black. Those cards are Demonic Tutor, Entomb, Goryo's Vengeance, Liliana of the Veil, Mikaeus the Unhallowed, Reanimate, and finally we have Tasigur the Golden Fang. So, of these 8 cards, Tom, how many do you think are playable?
So as a Modern player, I'm immediately attracted to Liliana of the Veil. Bitter Blossom sees quite a bit of play. Goryo's Vengeance is not unheard of. And I think Tasigur are the only ones that I see played in Modern. But I know that Reanimate is a good legacy card, as well as Entomb.
Same with Demonic Tutor.
And Demonic Tutor as well. And then the final one, Mikaeus the Unhallowed. I don't recognize it from Modern, but it commands a heavy price, and I'm thinking that's for Commander?
Yes. Oh, Mikaeus the Unhallowed is... I don't play a lot of Commander, but I hear a lot of Commander stories working at a card shop. And Mikaeus the Unhallowed is often the butt of someone's story about just some disgusting combo where an opponent, won on, turn 0 or something like that. I think that like his Triskelion and like Walking Ballista synergy is just kind of bonkers, like Walking Ballista dies as a 0/0, Mikaeus gives it Undying, comes back with a 1/1 counter over and over again. It's
infinite
just a 2-card
damage.
combo for infinite damage to any number of targets. And it's just, it's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
And it's worth noting too that, Commander players are all about the spicy, rare, hard to get your hands on foilings because you only need one card for your Commander deck, so you might as well make it the prettiest card out there.
And so the fact that this one's going to have the supremely beautiful box topper treatment, it's going to be quite sought after by Commander players.
Exactly. It's kind of an interesting thing to try to grapple with price-wise because, a card like, let's say, a Bitter Blossom, a card that generally, if you're playing Bitter Blossom in Modern, you're probably playing it as a 3 or a 4 of, in your strategy. Right. It's a very, very important card to the strategy. Liliana is often going to be a 3 of, Snapcaster Mage. Tassiger's usually a 2 or 3 of. Goryo's Vengeance, that's a 4 of, easy. So, like, these Modern cards, I feel like it's, like, harder for Modern players to want to pick up the full playset of these, like, spicy foils, but for Commander players...
They just need the one.
They just need the one. So,
right.
So I imagine that'll have something to do with the value, which makes me say that I think all 8 of these cards are playable in some shape or form and are going to be pretty sought after. I think that, like, probably Tasigur is, like, the least exciting one, but they did give him new art.
I have to say, I love that new art for Tasigur.
Me too. He looks mean right there. I wouldn't want to get on his bad side. Or maybe I would. Who knows? Let's see. How many new arts do we have in this one, Tom? We have Tasigur. We have Goryo's Vengeance. Oh, that one is creepy.
That is quite creepy. His long, slender man fingers are kind of unsettling.
What's up with the third hand? Is that someone behind him, or does
That's the Vengeance, man.
Oh wow! Oh wow! Yeah, just reaching out from behind.
And if we're talking about the new arts, we have to mention Bitter Blossom.
Oh wow! Yeah, that is very lovely.
It's like the original art, the one by Rebecca Guai that everybody loves. Everybody loves it for a reason, but I think that this one is up to par, if that's the right way to say it, with the original. I think it's just as beautiful, just in a slightly different way.
Absolutely, and this one was who's this one drawn by? Oh, okay, Jesper Ising. Jesper Ising. He did actually a lot of art in Lorwyn and in that block for fairies too. So you can definitely see that this is not his first walk through the Bitter Blossom patch, as it were. This looks so lovely. I'm really excited to see these just like expanded and foiled. Oh, getting excited. So 8 out of 8 playable. That's 3 out of 8 new art. Not bad. And I guess what's the chase black here? I guess...
And by chase black, you mean like the most desirable one?
Yeah, I guess Lily, huh?
I think it's got to be Lily.
Yeah.
Like, number 1 with a bullet, Liliana of the Veil.
It's hard to resist that chain veil,
And I have to admit, I would have been pretty excited by new art for Liliana, but her particular art of Liliana of the Veil is just so iconic.
It is. You can't ever go away from
like
that.
If they changed that artwork, it honestly could not possibly be for the better.
No, there would be an uproar, surely. All right, so that's it for black. So next on the list, we're going to go through Colorless. So Colorless, looks like we have 7 Colorless, just a tick shorter than the last one, black. But it looks like we have good old Emrakul the Aeon's Torn, mother of Rumination, Engineered Explosives, boom baby boom, Karn Liberated, the Spirit Dragon of Ugin. No, he's just Karn Liberated. And Kozilek Butcher of Truth, Mana Vault, Platinum Empyrean, and, of course, to round out the Eldrazi suite, Ulamog the Infinite Gyre.
So out of these, which ones are playable?
So again, in, Eternal formats, definitely Emrakul, Engineered Explosives, Karn, Platinum Empyrean, and Ulamog the Infinite Gyre. These are all cards that that see play either in Legacy or Modern. A Mana Vault, I'm not actually sure if Mana Vault sees play in Legacy or Vintage. I imagine it probably does. Seems like a very powerful effect.
And it's definitely in Commander, isn't it?
So in Commander, oh yeah, like a
Right up
mana
there with
rock that.
Basalt Monolith and like Soul Ring. It's just one of those sweet ramp you spells.
Mm-hmm. And then Kozilek is also the premier colorless commander. For
really?
If you're playing Commander and you want to build like a super powerful Eldrazi Commander deck, usually Kozilek is the one that you play. Just because when you cast him, you can draw 4 cards. That's pretty good. Annihilator 4, also not bad.
Not bad, he says. No. Annihilator is like the most busted keyword I think I've ever read on a Magic card.
Yeah, it's just, you better hope that you have Sigarda, Host of Herons on the battlefield if someone's trying to Annihilator you.
Oh god, that would be good. Yeah. Because it prevents permanents you control from being sacrificed.
Yeah, see, I'm thinking ahead to the limited environment here.
Nice.
Opponent plays a Kozilek, I'll just slam my Sigarda, it's fine.
And I'm trying to imagine a limited environment with all these big Eldrazi titans.
They're giving us Noble. They're giving us a bunch of stuff to ramp into.
The Mana Vault, that'll surely help.
The Mana Vault. I'm sort of wondering. I don't know. It looks like it could be a pretty interested limited environment. But not to get too off track. Let's see who has new art here. So Mana Vault has some gorgeous new art. Just like a big green obelisk spire with like some mana crystals floating atop. I think Platinum Empyreon wins the award for least new of the new art.
It's like you have to do a double take between him and his old version.
I think he was just facing the other way in his old version. It's like someone was like, "Hey, Platinum Empyreon," he was just like, "What?" And he turns the other way, and then they like snap the picture, and that's the new Platinum Empyreon. But dude does what he does. You don't need anything too fancy for him.
So they're all playable. 7 out of 7 playable. So in the new arts, there's Platinum Empyreon, and it looks like just a Mana Vault.
Yeah, so just 2 out of 7 with new art here. But to be fair, the artwork on a lot of these is pretty iconic, and also like a lot of these are so expensive that I feel like if you gave them new art, it might just like drive the price bonkers high, which I don't think you really want.
That's not the idea behind printing a master set.
I could see, just to like foreshadow a little bit what we'll talk about some in red, but it would have been cool if Wizards had given Imrakul some new art too.
Ah, yes.
But Imrakul original art is super iconic too, so not hating or anything.
I know we talked about the Mana Vault art briefly already, but it reminds me of actually Cavern of Souls. It has a similar color palette and that soft, almost blurry, foggy kind of
like
effect.
Sort of a green sort of mist. Yeah, you're right.
I'm really fond of that art style.
Moving on to Multicolored. Let's talk about, why don't you walk us through the Multicolored cards? There are 7 of them in total.
Sure. So it looks like we've got Leovold, Emissary of Trest, Lord of Extinction, Maelstrom Pulse, Mr. Gaddock Teague, Kitchen Finks, and Sigarda, Host of Herons. Oh, and I almost forgot, Fulminator Mage.
Fulminator Mage with the sweet new art.
So out of these, let's see which ones are playable. Well, I recognize Maelstrom Pulse, Gaddock Teague, Kitchen Finks, and Fulminator Mage. Those all get played a lot in Modern.
Oh, yeah.
I believe that Leovold was so good in Commander that they had to ban him.
Oh yeah, he was just busted.
But he still sees play in Legacy, perhaps.
Absolutely, yeah. He's just 3/3 for 3. Controls how your opponent draws. You can hit it off of a Cascade if you're Bloodbraiding if you want. You can just play it in some bug style control deck. Yeah. He's quite good there. And then again, we have the sort of Commander value with like Lord of Extinction, very good in Commander. Number of cards in all graveyards, pretty big in a Commander game, generally.
When it's more than the anticipated 2 graveyards, I'm sure that can get out of hand quickly.
Oh yeah, he gets to be a big old boy. That's why he needs that big mouth. And then Sigarda, Host of Herons, also just a wonderful effect to have in Commander. She has hexproof. She protects you from sack effects, which is a lot of times
the bane of hexproof.
Exactly, get around it. So
that makes a solid 7 out of 7 that I see play.
Absolutely. And again, we're seeing this trend of them not all just being Modern playables, but a good mix of playables in different formats, but definitely all playable. Let's see, new art. I think it's actually just Fulminator Mage that gets new art in the multicolor section.
Right. I think this is out of all the colors, except for white, of course, but we'll get to that. I think this has the least amount of new artwork, just the one Fulminator Mage. I mean, at least It looks pretty sweet.
It looks pretty sweet, though, doesn't it?
That's an improvement on the old Fulminator for sure.
Oh, absolutely. This Fulminator is just exalted. He's just having a great time setting some things on fire. It's awesome.
So out of all these, which one would you be most excited to pull from a box topper?
Not just because I'm biased as a humans player, but probably Gaddock Teague. I mean, he's only received one printing before, and he's just getting very expensive with the more nonsense that goes on in Modern. He's just sort of the guy that's like, guys, cut it out with the nonsense. No more of these X spells. No more of these non-creature spells. So he's been needing a reprint. I'd like him. Also, there's just something about Leovold. Leovold's just such a good card.
He's so classy, sitting there at his desk.
Counting his money.
Yeah, I feel like his room there smells like leather-bound books and rich mahogany.
I'm sure we can come to an arrangement, he says. And sit down and, he's arranged it all. So I think there's a part of me that would really love to open a Leovold just because, bug. It's just black, blue, green. Love that life. Love that world.
But I think I agree with you, though, as far as Gaddock Teague. Not only is he the most valuable, but he is the one that has been needing a reprint the most.
All right, so moving on to green.
So there are 5 green cards here. It looks like we've got Eternal Witness, Life from the Loam, Noble Hierarch, Tarmogoyf, and Vengevine. So, wow, a pretty stacked color.
Yeah, it's not a bad one in the list, right? I think all 5 out of 5 actually playable in Modern this time, right?
Yep, I recognize each and every one of those cards from being played heavily in Modern.
And in green, it looks like we have 3 new pieces of artwork: Tarmogoyf, Life from the Loam, and Eternal Witness.
And as far as the new arts go, this is the part I've been waiting for. My favorite new art is Tarmogoyf, I have to say. I'm sure some viewers listening will agree with me, but he just looks so cool with his mouth all open and the teeth like that. He looks much more impressive than he did in his previous incarnations.
You know, it's funny, with Tarmogoyf, I saw it at first and I was like, okay, do we really need that many spikes? He's looking a little bit, and then I, like I said, the store actually got our hands on one, and I was looking at it up close, and I was like, oh man, this looks actually so good. And there's some things that I really love about it too. Like, I don't know if you noticed, but when they released Guilds of Ravnica, I get the feeling that they were very much like setting Ravnica in the fall because they released it in the fall. Like, if you look at like Night of Autumn.
Autumn is in the name even on that one.
Indeed, if you look at the like champion playmat that they gave out for the Game Day Guilds of Ravnica, they're very much like 2 trees with very red leaves that are falling off, and a lot of the scenes, if you just look through the art in Guilds of Ravnica, are set in the fall.
And that was also when it was released in the year. It was released in the fall.
Released this fall. And I'm looking at Tarmogoyf, and I'm knowing that Ultimate Masters released in December. And the art on Tarmogoyf is Tarmogoyf running through this very like snowy like forest and like chasing like a stag or something like that. Yeah,
almost like he's running through a bunch of Christmas trees. The trees in particular even have that kind of vibe.
Oh yeah, imagine a Christmas present. There's nothing quite as exciting to a Magic player than opening this version of a Goyf on Christmas. I'm wondering if that's something that Magic is going to keep doing, that Wizards will keep doing. Because I think there are some similarities to sort of how Hearthstone releases. Hearthstone will like release the like Rise of the Ice Throne or whatever it was called. I'm sorry, I don't play Hearthstone a lot. But that was released during winter. Just sort of trying to time up releases with real life.
Like seasonally flavored cards.
Exactly.
And actually, on that note, glancing over at Eternal Witness, another beautiful new artwork. It looks like the little wolf that she's summoning there is made out of autumn-colored leaves.
Oh, you're right.
So I think you're onto something.
Okay.
They may be kind of expanding with that. We're releasing it in the fall, so now we're going to have a bunch of autumn.
We see you there, Wizards. We see you there, Wizards. We see what you're doing. I like it. Keep with it. Although, I have a love-hate relationship with this art, Tom.
With the Eternal Witness art?
Cool idea. So I work at a card shop, as I've mentioned, and we have, all of our boxes of singles up on, shelves. And so some of them are eye level, some of them are like chest level, some of them are on the ground. You have to squat down to get to them.
Right, I see.
So funny story about Eternal Witness. Because the 5th Dawn box, where Eternal Witness was originally printed, is so far to the ground, I always have to squat to get down to get an Eternal Witness. And every time I pull an Eternal Witness, I'm greeted by the original art where she's like squatting down in the leaves too, and I'm just like, oh, I get you, girl. You got me too. Here we are squatting
right down there with you.
Exactly, and it's silly, but I have such like I love that art for that reason, and so I'm really upset that Eternal Witness is standing up here. But
we'll just have to make sure that you put the Ultimate Masters box of singles up on the top shelf.
Now that I've said this, Tom, every time I open Ultimate Masters, guarantee my box topper is going to be Eternal Witness. Just mocking me.
Actually, you bring up another good point about Eternal Witness. This is one of the few box toppers that is actually an uncommon.
That's right. Uncommon box topper. One of two, I think. What's the other one?
Kitchen Finks. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. Kitchen Finks, definitely.
So, usually, with these special premium cards, they reserve that slot. Wizards of the Coast reserves that slot only for the rares and the mythics that are highly sought after. Mm-hmm. Eternal Witness is no less played than a lot of these rares and mythics, but the fact that it's an uncommon, I'm wondering what kind of effect that'll have on the box topper price.
That's a good question, because, even though they're all labeled as mythic in the full art border extended versions, like, they're definitely not all mythic, and Eternal Witness and Kitchen Finks are not. So, it's interesting, right? Because, especially with uncommons, those are the sorts of cards that you have in multiples, generally. Right. Sometimes Finks decks only run one or two because they're also, Court of Calling decks and stuff like that.
So Court of Calling is like running 4 more copies of whatever card you want it to be.
Right, but usually Eternal Witness is generally a 3 or 4 of in the decks that run it, in either Vile decks that run it. I know there's some green-white, I've even played at the shop against some Bant brews, some Bant Vile value brews.
Yep.
That have Ewit. Sometimes Elves runs Ewit so that it can hit it off Collected Company. But yeah, I'm curious too, do you think that the price will be significantly diminished because of their rarity? Their true rarity?
Well, that's what I'm wondering as well. As far as getting a box topper, it's just as rare, or just as unlikely, or likely, depending on how you look at it, as opening a Tarmogoyf or a Liliana of the Veil. It's just as uncommon in that sense. But because you could open the normal version in any given booster pack in the uncommon slot so much more frequently, I have a feeling that it will command a slightly lower price than a lot of the other box toppers.
But probably way more than their original printings.
Much more.
Yeah.
Because modern players love their foils, and if someone's going to want to buy 4 of these, there's no more of them in circulation than any of the other box toppers.
It's interesting, too, that for one of them, Kitchen Finks, no new art. But for Ewit, new art. So, that's yet another, variable that can affect the prices here. So I'm curious. I'm going to keep my eyes on these and sort of see where they go.
If I had to guess, I'd think that they would both be slightly less than the average box topper, with Eternal Witness being worth more than the Kitchen Finks simply because it has new art that gives it an extra level of desirability.
Definitely. So what do you think are the chase cards in this one?
Well, this is a pretty stacked slot, but I guess it comes down to 2 cards. It's either Noble or Tarmogoyf, as far as which card I would be most pleased to have in my collection.
Oh, it's got to be Noble for me. It breaks my heart because Noble is the sort of card that you've got to have in 4s.
Right.
But, oh man, as a Humans player, as someone who just loves ramping both on damage that you deal with Exalted and mana that you have access to, I would love to open as many Nobles as I can from these.
Agreed. Tarmogoyf might take the place of number 1 for me, but that's only because I'm so in love with that artwork. Everything you said about Noble, I think, is spot on. Well, we're moving right along here. The next color we are looking at is blue, which only has 2 cards spoiled. We wrote it down as 3. Why don't you explain where we got this 3rd blue card from?
So I can't remember where I originally saw it. I remember I was looking at spoilers, and included in the spoilers for the box toppers, but without an actual extended art version or anything, just as a normal version of the card, was Dig Through Time. And I started to realize that if you look at the art on the box of Ultimate Masters, and you look at the art of original Dig Through Time, they're the same card. So it looks like we are getting Dig Through Time, and it will be new art.
Yeah, it's slightly more stylized to the art on the front of the box, but it's pretty clear that it is the same woman wearing the same kind of headgear, summoning a rather wispy dragon out of a chalice or bowl that has teeth like a castle.
Yeah.
If that's not too childish of me.
Yeah, exactly. If you look closely at that chalice, you're right. It's the same. It's like some weird head wearing a crown or something like that.
That makes sense. You can almost see the eyes in the original Dig Through Time art.
Yeah. I see him now. So definitely Dig Through Time is going to be one of these, and that's this sort of elusive 42nd card,
Right.
third blue card. And in blue, I think that that's one of the 2 new arts as well. So we've got new art for Dig Through Time and new art for Temporal Manipulation. So in terms of chase cards, Dig Through Time is right out.
It's banned in Modern.
Banned pretty much everywhere that you would want to run it.
Which makes me wonder why they're reprinting it, but it
is a really good card.
and it'll be legal in the Ultimate Masters draft, like the limited environment. So I can only imagine the crazy shenanigans that people are going to be pulling with Dig Through Time.
Oh, it's so good in limited. I remember drafting limited in Fate Reforged or where
in Cons
Block, yeah, and it's just such a good card. I remember actually playing it a little bit in Standard. When I was first getting into Standard, it was that block too. That was one of the cards that, showed me the overwhelming power of like a control player that knows which cards they need and how to get there.
Right.
So it looks like in terms of playability, definitely Snapcaster Mage, insanely sought after. And then Temporal Manipulation. Forgive my ignorance on this one, Tom, but is this card played anywhere?
So, I was looking that up, and it's not played in the Modern version of Taking Turns.
Okay.
I actually couldn't find it in any Modern deck lists, so I'm not used to seeing it in Modern. But for whatever reason, I think it's because it's only been printed one time previously, like an Urza's block.
Okay.
That is why it commands such a high price. As of recording this video, a price of actually like $80.
Good God, $80 for this card.
And that's for the original non-foil, like old one from Urza's block.
It's not even instant speed, and you can't even shuffle it back into your library when you cast it.
Yeah, and actually, I got one of the box toppers in the mail, and I was super excited opening the package. And I opened a Temporal Manipulation and thought, oh my gosh, I got one of the only bad ones. Until I looked up the price. I'm stunned. I have to say, I can't believe that that's an $80 card.
It's the difference, like, it's definitely different from opening a valuable card that, like, you really enjoy playing with and know of, but, like, opening a valuable card, I mean, $80 is, like, more expensive than a lot of the cards in this set, a lot of the chase cards. More expensive than a Noble.
Or even than a Snapcaster. The chase card out of the color blue Snapcaster, while it is more desirable to a Modern player, is not as valuable as a temporal manipulation.
So here's what I'm wondering, right? So we saw this sort of happen, I think it was in Masters 25 with Imperial Recruiter, right? We had this card, and I think it was sitting somewhere insane around $300 or something like that.
Just for a lack of a second printing.
Exactly, just because it had only received one printing, and that's it. And then when it got reprinted, it's still a valuable card. It's like a $60 card now, though. So
from $300 down to approximately $60.
Exactly. So I'm wondering if we're not like going to see something similar with Temporal Manipulation, where like, it's earlier prices $80, but then it gets reprinted, and just because the no reprint was the only reason for the value, now we have a price that is closer to 25 or 30 if we take sort of the same like percentage drop, from 300 down to 60. And so I don't know. I'm not sure that this one is actually value, but it could be. It could be, and I think probably the chase foil version of it will probably keep its good value.
Right. I'm not much of a commander player, but this card, because it costs 5 mana and it is a sorcery and it has a powerful effect, that just makes me think of commander playable.
Yeah, it's true.
So there's probably some commander player with a mono blue control deck that would just absolutely love this printing.
Not good enough constructed. Play in commander. It's the commander way.
There you go.
No offense, commander players. I love you. I guess obviously the chase card in this one is old Snapcaster Mage.
No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm not that excited about Dig Through Time.
No, the art looks really cool. I just am really going to hate opening it.
Yeah.
Not playable anywhere. I can't imagine that card gets very valuable at all. But yeah, that's blue. Why don't you take us through red, Tom?
Sure. So just a couple of red cards. We have Balefire Dragon and Through the Breach. So first things first. I love the Through the Breach artwork.
Oh, I am right there with you, buddy.
So there's 1 out of 2 that has the new art that's Through the Breach, and there's also 1 out of 2 that I would say is playable, again, Through the Breach. I've seen alters of this card where people had like commissioned an artist to draw Emrakul on Through the Breach because that's what their deck uses it for. And Wizards of the Coast, I feel like just knocked it out of the park by choosing that artwork. That is some serious fan servicing, like in the best way.
They really gave the people what they wanted here. Because the first Through the Breach, it's like some weird lanky-looking dragon dinosaur-looking thing. And it's just like, what even is that?
Right.
No one's in the game with weird lanky dinosaurs. But man, People are through the breaching prime time sometimes, but usually they're through the breaching Emrakul, and just summoning a big ol' Eldrazi. I mean, look at that. Just she's coming there out of like the ocean. There's a storm going on. There's some insane person standing on that rock. I don't know what they thought they were doing, but I can't imagine they get out of this without having Emrakul rip them another Aeon.
Lady Emrakul is large and in charge in this artwork, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. The color purple in a Magic card art in foil makes it the most beautiful foils. I think probably, talking again about Bitter Blossom, it'll look stunning in foil for the same reason.
I have to agree with you there. Yeah, I just absolutely love the foiling on purple cards. So definitely Through the Breach is the card that you want to pull here. I'm guessing Balefire Dragon, because when we looked it up, it's like, $13 to $15 cards. So
someone is playing it somewhere.
Someone's playing it, and it definitely has a powerful effect. So, I imagine...
It's a huge CMC, kind of a slow card. Again, we can chop it up to Commander players for making this one popular.
And also notable for the limited environment, which we don't know a lot about because we don't have any other spoilers as of the recording of this. But for the limited environment, Balefire Dragon's a pretty good one to Through the Breach, huh?
Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, it deals that much damage to each creature that player controls. So wow, Through the Breach, Balefire Dragon...
Give it haste, have them hit, board white.
Wow.
Yeah, it seems pretty good to me.
Yeah,
seems like these two definitely go together. All right, so that's it for red. We'll save the best for last, guys. White, 0 cards.
Well, we're done with white.
Yep. That basically sums up where white falls in the color pie.
It's a little strange that they wouldn't spoil a single white card.
Yeah.
Like there's only 2 red cards. There's only 2 blue cards if you don't count Dig Through Time from the box art. I would expect at least 1.
Well, what does that tell you about the limited format, right? Like no rares in white? That's pretty weird. That's pretty weird that we have like rares like Gaddock Teague and Sigarda, like a white green rare, like Kitchen Finks. I guess not rare, but uncommon.
Right.
Like no rares in white. Like what is the white color pie going to be doing in this draft format? Just supporting? I don't know.
They're leaving a lot up to the imagination. That's for sure. Which I guess is enticing in its way. It's like, ooh, I wonder what the white could be. But I think the world, we Magic players, would have benefited from having at least 1 or 2 white spoilers, the way we had at least 1 or 2 in each of the other colors.
So that about wraps it up for the individual color by color sectioning out of the cards and what are the chases. And so what we wanted to do now is sort of like do a deep dive into the finances of this set, because there's been a lot of talk, a lot of controversy about how the set is too expensive, about the box toppers aren't so much value, about how much they sell for in stores versus in local game stores.
Right. Like, is it worth it to buy a full box from a game store that comes with the box topper?
Absolutely.
Compared to going to a big box store and just buying 8 packs of 3 boosters.
Yeah, and I want to give Wizards the benefit of the doubt too, because there is a lot of like value in this set from what I'm seeing just from the mythics and the rares. So yeah, why don't we talk a little bit about the value of the box as a whole and what you can expect as a customer who purchases this thing and walks out with it.
Yes, I think that's actually a really big deal. Well, of course it is to a lot of Magic players. The barrier to entry, how expensive is the product, can I afford it? So yeah, let's dive in. The MSRP from Wizards, as it was released in the press statement, $335.76.
$335.76 comes with 24 boosters and 1 box topper, including one of the 42 premiums.
Correct. That is including the box topper. So an alternate route that you could choose is if you don't buy a complete box from your LGS, you could go to a big box store, Target, Walmart, that kind of thing.
Boo.
Boo indeed. But they sell 3 packs for $34.99. So to come up with a booster box's worth of packs, you'd be buying 8 3-packs, and with sales tax, that brings you up to a total of $303.57.
So $279.92 for the total 24 packs from a big box store. And then we assumed like an average of 8.45% sales tax, like across the U.S. It's the national average. And that brought the total that you're generally paying when you walk out of the store to $303.57, all things said and done.
Yes, thank you for clarifying the sales tax. That will vary depending on state, but looking up the average for the nation, it's at 8.45%. Walking out of the door from Walmart, you've paid $303.57, and you don't get the box topper. So subtracting the difference between $303 and $335 is $32.19. To get to the exact number, if you're paying MSRP, that is how much you're paying for your box topper.
And the important thing here, too, is that MSRP is something that big box stores are pretty much locked into when they get the product. When local game stores get the product, we usually get it from distributors. We don't get it directly from Wizards. And so there is like a lot of flexibility that local game stores have with the price of boxes. Basically, they need to say, how much are we buying this at cost? How much can we sell it for while still making enough profit to keep our, shop up and running and to keep things growing? And so generally, I wouldn't expect actually that when you walk into, a local game store, I don't generally expect that you'll be paying the full MSRP.
No, they're pre-ordering online for quite a bit less than that.
If you assume that the local game stores, like let's just assume worst case scenario that including tax you're paying $335.76 at a local game store,
right?
And including tax you're paying $303.57 at a Walmart or a Target, right, for the 24 packs. And so, like you said, the difference for that box topper is $32.19.
Not bad.
Not bad. Now.
That number is interesting though for a particular reason. I'll let you explain it, Morgan.
Right. So we wanted to determine, okay, if that $32.19 is what we're being charged extra for a box topper, essentially, why don't we go through the box topper, the list of box toppers, and try to determine to the best of our means, as conservatively as possible, like what the average value for a box topper would be.
Right.
So first, we totaled up everything. We went to patsgames.com. We typed in basically a list of cards we wanted, and we took the Pats prices, which, albeit the Pats prices are actually a little bit lower generally than things like TCG and other like shipping sales sites. So
this is even a modest number.
Exactly.
As far as that goes.
And it's not foil either. We didn't price this foil. We just priced this as the regular cards. The regular, cheapest version of Noble Hierarch, cheapest version of, Tarmogoyf, Flight from the Loan, etc., etc. And the total of all 42 cards, when we placed an order for one of each, was $1,328.50.
Gotcha. And that is for not just the 41 cards that were actually spoiled, but including Dig Through Time, which doesn't make that big of a difference. But
no, it doesn't. And so when you divide that number by 42, you end up with 31.63.
And that is awfully close to the difference in price between buying at a Target and buying at a game store, what you get for your box topper.
When you incorporate sales tax. Yeah, it's like Wizards knows what they're doing here. Like this is actually, you are actually paying just about the average value for a box topper when you buy it from a local game store.
But the main difference is that we priced our cards out being non-foil, the normal version of the most recent printing. And the box topper, of course, is the glamorous, full art, everything.
Most chase version of the card. So chances are the average that we're giving you right now is much lower than what the true average will be. But you do have to account for certain duds.
Right. Most notably, as far as duds, let's see, Lava Claw Reaches, $1.75.
Yep. So and again, these are all Pat's Games prices, but yeah, Lava Claw Reaches $1.75.
Stirring Wildwood, $1.
Dig Through Time, $1.50.
And then Tassiger, even though he has the sweet new art, he's also $1.50. So if you're only buying one box and you only get one box topper, it would be a sad day indeed if it was any of those four cards.
And to keep in mind, the foil multiplier will probably apply here for all of these cards. You're probably not actually looking at this as your floor. You're looking at, something closer to between $3 and $12, I would say, as your floor. Not actually, $1.75, but it's between $3 and $12, as your box topper is a far cry from that $32.19 that you're paying extra.
Right.
Now, the ceiling is pretty high, too. So at the ceiling, the sort of highest value cards at the time of this recording were Temporal Manipulation, surprisingly, at around $80.25.
Karn Liberated at $72.25.
Noble Hierarch, $66.50.
And then, of course, Liliana of the Veil commands a high price at $77.75.
Engineered Explosives, again, $68.50. And finally,
Cavern of Souls for $65.
So the ceiling's pretty high. The ceiling's going to be, when you take into account, getting full value by selling, on something like eBay or through TCG or something like that, plus the foil multiplier because they're these foil premiums plus any new art multiplier that might exist, you're probably looking at like a range of a ceiling that's like between $80 and like $150 in some cases, I would imagine. So, that's a good deal more than you're paying for the box topper for the ceiling. And I'd say that, obviously the average is going to be somewhere between 50 and 60 when you account for the foil multiplier and new art multiplier.
And an average of 50 or 60 when you break down the math like we did, and you're only actually paying $32 maximum as at MSRP for the box topper. That seems pretty enticing when you put it that way.
Yeah, so I think that like this has all been sort of a lesson for me as I went through the math at like, not speaking too soon or getting too angry at Wizards when stuff like this happens, because definitely the price that you pay for this is very, very high, and it's not something that people will be able to buy in bulk, and it's not something people will be able to afford easily. But I think as we looked at the value in the set from what we've seen already, it looks actually pretty fair for the price that's being offered. And if this is really the last hurrah send-off Ultimate Masters set, I think that sits a little bit better with me than I felt about it earlier this week when I was, watching videos about how overpriced it was and the big differences in box topper with or box topper without. So I feel a little bit better. What about you?
I do too. I think I had seen online, like the talk around town, was that you're essentially paying $52 for these box toppers. And the way we do it based on an MSRP and the national average for sales tax, I think $31, or approximately $30, is a lot easier of a pill to swallow than $50.
Indeed. All right, well, that's all we have to say about Ultimate Masters. But, there was a big event this weekend, Tom.
I heard about that. Something called the Pro Tour, I think?
Some grouping of professionals. There was a Pro Tour. Guilds of Ravnica took place this past weekend, and it was an exciting standard Pro Tour, something I'm so happy that I can say, honestly. I'm a standard player at heart. I play a little bit of Modern too, as you know, but you're very much the Modern aficionado in the group, and I'm very much the standard guy.
Yeah, I'll be leaning on your expertise for talking about standard.
But I thought that this Pro Tour was great. I thought it was a blast to watch, and I thought that a lot of really fun things happened in the meta. I wanted to talk a little bit about coverage first, because this is obviously a very critical time for Wizards. They've just released Arena. It's doing great. The streaming numbers for Arena are really awesome. People are loving it. And so this is like the first big event after Arena has been made public. And how did it do?
Well, looking at the coverage, we have some numbers as far as peak views go. And during the Pro Tour here recently, it peaked out at about 5 p.m. during the top 8 with 38,000 viewers for MTG. And the most recent comparable Hearthstone tournament, just to give you some comparison, was the Global Series.
Done at BlizzCon, so pretty big event. I'd say it's roughly comparable.
Comparable to the Pro Tour, and they had only marginally more viewers at 41,000.
Wow, to me, that's a pretty good sign. Like, at first when I saw 38,000, I thought maybe that number wasn't so high, but, comparing it to the numbers that Hearthstone gets, I imagine Wizards has got to be pretty happy about that.
Historically, I feel like Hearthstone has much more viewers than Magic the Gathering does on their Twitch coverage.
Absolutely. I feel like Hearthstone has just been more of an esport,
right,
even though Magic has definitely been more of a competitive card game for longer.
Like, the fact that Hearthstone is on iPad and is strictly...
And it's clearly the thing that Wizards is trying to go for with Arena, right?
Right.
And so I think that these numbers they can be proud of. I always have the same gripes, though, when I'm watching like coverage of Pro Tours. And it's just that there are so many commercial breaks. There's so many fluff pieces on, this is what it's like to play Magic, and this is this pro, and this is that pro. And, honestly, like, as important as it is to showcase the players in that way, maybe in a segment somewhere during the weekend, this like constant barrage of player info, it's just not something you see from other esports. When you watch like League of Legends, Hearthstone, Overwatch, because this is the day and age that they're competing in, and this is the environment that they're competing in. And you just don't see a lot of that. Like, you see a little bit of storylines for teams and like teams that like have maybe different tech for the weekend, and that's all well and good, but I don't know. I feel like Magic has to walk a thin line between, supporting its players and showcasing them, but also just, it's not the most interesting thing to watch in the world.
Right. There are some inherent difficulties with making Magic interesting to watch. There's sideboarding, takes time while there's no game being played. shuffling. Depends on the deck that you're playing or the format. More like there's a lot of shuffling in Modern, for example. So I can understand the need for being able to cut to commercial, cut to a player bio, have something else to show. But from watching the Pro Tour this weekend, I felt like approximately 30%, 40% maybe of actual gameplay, and then as much as 60 or 70% what I would call fluff.
And it's even harder too, right, with a Pro Tour like this, because, we'll get to this in a little bit, but the metagame that we saw on this Pro Tour is very much an aggressive metagame. It was dominated by white weenie strategies, splashing for red. It was dominated by monocolor strategies. And so, especially in these matchups where, a game one can take,
4.5 minutes.
Exactly, and just 4.5 minutes of just an absolute slaughter and then right to commercial. And, oh, man, does that feel bad.
Yeah.
So I think that Wizards needs to figure out something. I know that when you watch SCG, they'll do... for sideboarding, at least, they'll do the live video of each of the players on the left and on the right, and then it'll actually show them sideboarding and shuffling up, and then they'll have the sideboarded lists of their decks, underneath that picture, and then the commentators will talk about them, which right. Magic does a little bit of in coverage, but they just don't commit to staying on the players for that long. Basically, all in all, I just think that coverage is getting better, and I'm happy for that, but Magic has got to find some sort of solution to the just amount of air that there is in these broadcasts if they want to be seriously competitive in the esport Twitch realm.
And that solution is not the same kind of fancy done up Magic the Gathering animated commercial over and over.
Oh God, no.
It looks neat. I would be pleased if I was able.
The first time.
Yeah, the first time, exactly. If I made something that looked that cool, I would be super proud. So I don't at all knock them for wanting to show it off.
Respect to you, animator. Great animation. I'm sorry that was run into the ground 9 million times over the weekend.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's get into the top 8. The top 8 of this tournament was dominated by the White Weenie strategy. White Weenie is sort of what it was called, but a lot of these decks were splashing red, if not for a couple of copies of Heroic Reinforcements in the main. But also for sideboard cards. The Team Channel Fireball list, I think, didn't run any red in the main, but they did run Foundries and Clifftop Retreats to support a red sideboard.
So therefore, on paper, it's got to be Boros.
Exactly, but truly, this is White Weenie as a strategy being, supplemented by red aggression. There was one copy of Jeskai Control, one copy of Is It Drakes or Is It Phoenix? I'm not sure what we call it at this point, but, Crackling Drakes, Enigma Drakes, Arclight Phoenixes, that stuff. And then 6 copies of these Boros aggro White Weenie strategies in the top 8.
My goodness. Well, out of those 8 decks, which ones made it to the semis?
4 of the White Weenie strategies. We had
really,
yeah, we had 2 sort of white-red aggressive mirrors in the semis. And actually, Tom, did you get a chance to watch?
So, not as closely as I should have, but I am aware that LSV made it at least to the semis.
Yes, LSV, Luis Scott Vargas, longtime Magic pro. I think this was his 9th Pro Tour top 8, so well done, Luis. He just blew my absolute mind. I was watching with my friend Alan. We had waited a little bit because we wanted to watch it together, and we both were busy during the day. So we waited, and he came in and he was like, "Morgan, you've got to see this play." I just saw it in semis, and so we turned it on. We skipped to that section. It's Game 5. Spoiler alert ahead, by the way. LSV is playing against...
And Game 5 is the last game, right?
Yeah, last game, exactly. In Pro Tour top 8s, it's best of 5. I think first 2 are pre-board, final 3 are post-board. And so LSV is playing what's roughly the mirror versus Jeremy Dazani. Jeremy Dazani's in this spot where, they're both at 5 to 7. They're both essentially dead on the crackback, and they're having to make really complicated combat decisions. So LSV is on Team Channel Fireball. Team Channel Fireball is running a really interesting build of this deck that's built specifically to break the mirror. It's built to, instead of just running Healer's Hawks, it also runs Leonin Vanguards, which gain you a life during your combat step if you have 3 more creatures. It also runs Ajani's Pride Mates, which get 1/1 counters put on them with every time you gain life.
I can see the synergy there.
Indeed. Works really great with a turn 1 Healer's Hawk or a turn 1 Legion's Landing.
That's
right?
the 1/1 flying lifelink.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So basically the whole point of his deck was to outgrow with Ajani's Pride Mate and gain incidental life, which is very helpful in the mirror. So apparently of the Team Channel Fireball lists, the team decided that one of the lists should run a one-of copy of Settle the Wreckage in the sideboard. Because during Swiss play, you don't get to see players' deck lists. So the idea is that players would start to see a Settle the Wreckage at some point during one of those games, and they would spread the word throughout the tournament that the Team Channel Fireball has Settle the Wreckage in their sideboard. And because Settle is such a scary card, people would be forced to play around it, even against lists that didn't have access to it.
Interesting.
So LSV ends up being the one person on this team that has one copy of Settle the Wreckage in his sideboard. So it's game 5. Dazani does have deck lists, so Luis has got to assume that he has to play around Settle the Wreckage a little bit, but it's just a one-of, and there's not a lot of library manipulation in these Boros decks. So LSV passes turn with his blockers up, and he has 4 lands. One of them is a Danto, the first fort. So he lines up his lands, 3 lands in one pile, a Danto in the other, giving the info that he wants to activate a Danto and make a 1/1.
Right, a little bit of a tell, but on purpose. That's the mind game that he's playing here.
Exactly. Now that's level 1. We've all done that at one point or another, right?
Mm-hmm.
So level 2 is that when Jeremy is lining up blocks, this is something that Jeremy did all weekend. He would sit in front of the cards and grab the creatures and line them up and just theoretically see how the opponent would likely block. So while Jeremy was doing this with the creatures on the board, Luis reaches over to the token section at the table and picks up a 1/1 Vampire Lifelink token and just holds it in his hand to the side of the table, representing that he might be about to create the token, preparing for Jeremy's attacks. Jeremy needs to not be over-aggressive here, or else he might lose on the crackback. Jeremy just grabs the token immediately from LSV's hand and starts putting it in front of creatures, lining it up as though it were a creature that were already on the battlefield, Tom.
Oh my goodness.
So he then makes the all-out attack. Luis just throws the token to the side, taps his land, Settle the Wreckage, wins the semifinals.
Oh my goodness.
It was an incredible play.
It's like master level mind games.
Oh, I imagine we're going to hear LSV talk about this on his next Genius or Grifter. Because I'm still not sure how to feel about it, but one thing I do know, insane. Blew my mind. I think it was really impressive.
And there's nothing shady about reaching and holding the token. He's just getting ready to do his thing. I think the fault, if there is fault, is with his opponent who took it out of his hand and considered it a blocker.
That's right.
It changed his
hook, line, and
combat
sinker.
math.
It did. Yeah.
Block.
At that point, he committed to the math, he committed to the lie, he committed to the bluff.
Wow.
So good. We won't spoil who won the Pro Tour for anyone who hasn't seen it, so go out and watch the finals. It's a great finals. But all in all, it was a really enjoyable top 8, and I thought that they did a really great job, coverage did, of making the top 8 really fun to watch. Well, that's about all we had to talk about today, Tom. Super excited to keep doing this podcast with you. The next episode of Tapped In Podcast will be releasing on Wednesdays, generally around 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So stay tuned. Make sure to hit subscribe and turn on the bell icon for notifications to get that little ring-a-ding when the next episode is in.
You want to make sure you stay up to date.
Indeed. We will be doing questions of the week in the future. We didn't have one prepared this week for the first episode. So if you want to, you can go ahead and tweet. You can find our Twitter handles in the description below. What's your Twitter handle?
@GrinderMTG.
And mine is @TheRealElementOP. That's TheRealElemenop.
Goodness.
Old name. Complicated. But that's where you can find me. So definitely send us any tweets that you have, any questions you want us to answer on the podcast. We will. And we'll be coming up with a Twitter handle specifically for the podcast soon enough, and we'll have that up as soon as it's ready. But until then, stay tapped in. I'm Morgan.
And I'm Thomas.
Stay tapped in.